you in every whichever way. So extremely, extremely grateful for each and every one of you to be here. Extremely grateful for NIR Esterman to take out this time, very precious time of his, to be with us. And I love the way people are just coming in, and that really feels so nice. Okay. So today is a very, very special day for me. And I'm going to first introduce to you who NIR is for me, not just his qualifications. Of course, we all know that he does Shadow Constellations, but he's someone I came across due to trauma university, and I happened to look at his face and I say, I want to do his program. I heard the shadow and I didn't know what shadow meant. I'm sure many of you sitting here must be wondering, what is the shadow? What is she going to teach us and what are they going to teach us? I think I studied with him online. I don't think I did study with him online, and I did study with him offline. So I studied with him under him twice. My life changed. Absolutely. Something that I hadn't sorted out for more than 40 years in my life. More than 40 years in my life. It just walked up and I was able to sort it. So deep, deep, deep gratitude to NIR for teaching me something that's always going to be part of me. I mean, my shadow was always a part of me. I just wasn't aware. So this is who NIR is for me. And if he could help me out with something that is 40-year-old, if you're not as old as I am, I'm sure you'll be able to clean a lot more. So let's ask NIR first to talk about, NIR, how did you get into Shadow Constellation? I mean, you know, people get into what they get into because of something.
Thank you, Anu, first. Before I'll answer, is it okay if more people would turn on your cameras? Because it takes much more energy from me to speak to names and still images than to actually see people and feel you.
Thank you. Can everybody please put down their cameras? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If it's possible, if it's not, it's okay, but if it's possible, please do. Also, no, I'd like to ask you to cancel the chime when someone comes in, because it breaks my line of thought when people come in and there's a strong sound.
Yes, there is. And I have no idea how to do that, NIR.
You can make me co-host and I will do that.
Okay, perfect. I'll do the co-host. Here. I am making you the co-host. Please go ahead and do the magic of removing the sound.
Thank you.
Thank
Done.
you. Yeah.
You're done. So thank you everyone who are here today in person and those who will be watching. How did I get into Shadow Constellations? Well, I am working with people for over 20 years now. Before that, I was studying computer science, biology, science teaching, master's degree, etc. And in parallel, I went into body work, a very deep emotional kind of body work called Rimmer method. And that was already after I had cancer when I was 22, which changed the course of my life like it does for many. And not directly, but after a short while. And for quite some years, I was doing mainly this kind of body work. And then it's a long story. I'm really giving you the highlights. I stumbled upon an embodiment teacher named Mark Walsh, the UK. And I felt like, oh, whatever he speaks about, I know that language, but I speak it in a different dialect. I'm like, okay. I started learning with him. And then I started to bring him to Israel, where I lived back then until 2 years ago. It so turned out that for his training that he opened in Russia, before the war in Russia, he needed a body psychotherapist to teach embodied shadow work. And through that connection, I started to get involved, understand, and teach shadow work, embodied shadow work. That was before Constellation. When I was first invited to do that, I actually didn't know the concept of shadow work, but when they asked me if I am able to teach that, I looked into that and I was like, yeah, I do. Even though the title is not a title I used until now, the idea is something that I deeply resonate with and connect with. And actually, I realized that every major breakthrough that I personally or professionally had with myself went through some of my shadow. And it was like, whoa, this is big. And so I started practicing and teaching shadow work, embodied shadow work. And then a few years later, I ran into family constellations. And by that time, I was already 14 years into the practice. I had a thriving practice. I had a name, reputation. And I thought I'm just gonna, probably like some of you, I'm just gonna get another tool for my toolbox for the benefit of my dear clients because I'm already doing well enough. And, professionals, we have to keep developing all the time. So from this perspective, I came to an intro workshop of family constellations with Sakino, my first teacher of constellations. And after about 2.5 hours, I was sitting there in the room with 35 other people doing some process of reconciliation with me and my father, crying, trembling, sweating, and feeling like something big is happening. And many big things happened. And I knew at that time, at that moment, that, okay, I'm in. Because family constellations, the first thing I knew about it allowed me to get in touch with not just myself and my childhood, but also with what happened before me, with the history and traumas of my parents and their parents and their parents. It opened the entire intergenerational frame for me. And it was unbelievably powerful. And from that meeting of family constellations, I think it was 3 days afterwards, I gave myself a self constellation because the tool was so intuitive and yet so powerful. And after a month, I gave my first Shadow Constellations workshop because I was already deeply involved with embodiment and shadow work. And when family constellations came in, it was just, I cannot keep the two separated. They are so well aligned that they share several key principles and they complement each other because in shadow work, we're basically working with what we are not in touch with inside of ourselves. Yeah. So what we deny, what we repress, what we disown, and what we are triggered by others who are like that, sometimes triggered into being angry or judgmental, sometimes triggered into being tired, and sometimes actually it causes attraction. Yeah. The shadow has to do with romantic and sexual attraction too. But it's shadow work historically is all about me and myself. Yeah. Me and myself parts, inner work. Amazing, I love it. And then came family constellations, which offered systemic work. Me and my family of origin and my culture and my tribe and my gender and everyone. Oh, what happens if we connect them? The result is shadow
When you're
constellations.
talking about this, I mean, I'm loving what you're saying, but I would really like you to first explain to people what really is a shadow, because just like me, I'm sure they completely lost these terminologies, family constellation,
Mm,
shadow,
yeah.
so new to them, some of them. They're so
Mm,
raw that they might just look at it and say, I don't understand it. So could you please tell us what really is a shadow? What's a family
mm,
constellation? So let's first start with shadow, because we're talking about shadow constellations. What really is a
mm.
shadow that we're talking about here?
Okay, so the shadow is a term coined by Carl Gustav Jung, who was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist He also had a very deep interest with Eastern philosophies and all kind of esoteric modalities. He was a student of Freud at the time, and then separated from him. He is the one who taught us about collective archetypes and about being introvert or extrovert and many other things, which today are common, but back then were virtually unknown. And so he coined the term shadow. And shadow, in a way, is a thing that we can never fully see about ourselves. Like when we look at the sun, when you look at the light into the light, the shadow is always behind us. And whenever we turn to a certain direction, our shadow moves and stays behind us. In the shadow, we have emotions, we have ideologies, we have certain felt senses, we have abilities, we have joy, we have creativity. Everything that makes us human being can go into the shadow. What does it mean? Whenever, especially as small children, whenever something endangers our belonging to our family of origin and to our culture, we're faced with a very difficult choice. We can either stay whole and be rejected, or we can cut ourselves to pieces and hide the pieces which do not match what is expected of us deep inside of ourselves and feel like we belong and get respect, sometimes even admiration, get love, and get acceptance. And the vast majority of us, or maybe even all of us to some degree, we take the second path. Because very deeply inside of us, there is some primitive jungle understanding that if you are not with a tribe, you're dead. So from a survival perspective, we bury some of our own self parts very deeply inside. If we could, we would kill them and then fully belong. We cannot do that, however, so we disconnect, we dissociate from them inside of ourselves, and we hide them in the shadow. And then we can call them shadows with a small s and the shadow with a capital S. And whatever goes into the shadow actually affects us sometimes more strongly than all the rest combined. Because what I'm not in touch with pulls me and pushes me to do things and to connect with people in certain ways that I would not consciously choose to, but it's all unconscious. The shadow is at the heart of the unconscious. So for example, in my case, I grew up in a family where anger was not allowed. We are nice people, accepting people. We talk, we please each other even before the other asks us for anything. We already want to give it to them. When my parents have a fight, it looks like my father says something my mother doesn't like. My mother tells my father, stop talking silly. End of fight. Yeah, nice, right? And then when I got a bit older and I started to date women, and I would find myself every time either leaving or creating inner distance between us after a month or two. And I had no idea why. It just happened over and over again. And after each time, I would not even want to see a woman for a few months. And then again, I would want to, and then meet someone new. And she was lovely. It was all about me. They were really, really, really lovely women. And the cycle would repeat again. And it took me some years in therapy to realize that what happened was that anger has also the capacity to allow us to say no. I don't want this. I don't agree with that. So when I was disconnected from my anger, I could not say no to my girlfriends. Even in a really, I don't know, they wanted to go to the movies and I didn't want to see that movie, I couldn't say no. Naturally, anger started to, I started to have more anger inside of me, more and more anger, until I felt like there was a distance between us. And then either I quit or they told me this is not working and because you're distant. And only when I realized that, and I started to agree to reclaim my anger, be okay with being also angry, not just angry, yeah, but also angry. I started to have 3 month and 5 month relationships, and now I'm married for 17 years and with two teenage girls. And naturally, of course, my wife, I unconsciously chose as a person who is well connected to her anger. Because this is another thing that the shadow makes us do. It makes us choose people to be, especially in romantic relationships, that have our shadow, but we don't notice it at first. We just feel attracted. We just feel like, oh, this is my missing piece. Together we can be whole. Yeah. And then after a while, we realize that it's not working well because they're this and they're that, and we are judgmental and they're judgmental. And then we either break apart or we start to do our work. Whether we're 3 months together or 20 years together, at some point, the status quo changes and we need to either, something breaks. So either the relationship breaks or we break through the defenses we've put around our shadows and we start reclaiming who we are. And then the relationship can change and we can change. I can sit here all day and talk about different
I know.
options about how the
I'm just
shadow is.
thinking,
Correct me, please.
yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about change, I often joke and say, when you stand at a traffic light, people are talking about, can you give me a change? Can you give me a change? It's not that easy. It's not like some beggar coming to yourself and saying, please give me that change that you have in your purse, sir. So it's not that easy to change ourselves. So uh, you mean to say if I do shadow constellation, I'm going to be a changed person because I met my shadow?
Yes.
Okay.
Every kind of work that you do that allows you to be reconnected with more parts of yourself, whether it's shadow work or something else, will make you a changed person. That's like, it's not so special in my world. Okay, even when I was doing body work, and through body work, people were connecting with themselves. They're changed people, of course. If you're asking, will everything change? No, of course not. We remain ourselves.
So
If you're asking, how
how
do I
does
know
it
if
help?
I will change? Sorry?
How does it help me when I come to know, okay, that I haven't been ever angry or I haven't said a no. So once I reclaim that part of me, once I
Mhm.
understand that part of me, how
Mhm.
possibly can life change for me? Because this is so common in India, so common
Mhm.
where we are taught from our childhood, no, you cannot do that. So let's say
Mhm.
if I'm able to even get in touch with that part of me, that anger part of me that I've cut off and thrown off,
Mhm.
how can how can it help me? Because people want to come for the workshop because it can help them, and they really want to know what's that. How will they know what do they have to do? Do they have to work very hard in these 5 days? What really can they be doing where they can even see that small change in them, and that is so organic that they don't feel that making change, it just happens. Anything that you can throw light on that? Thank you.
Yes, you're going to work hard in the 5 days. Let's begin with that. Okay. If you're not here to work hard, that's perfectly fine. Please don't come. However, working hard doesn't mean that it will be difficult. It's
Thank
two
you.
different things. Okay. We will be working hard because we will be looking at places and getting in touch with things, both personal and from our family of origin and from our culture, yeah, from the history of our culture and the collective that are in the shadow. So we will have to find ways to get in touch with them. And sometimes it is scary, and sometimes it is overwhelming, like a wave. And when you're not alarmed and realize it's a wave, okay, it's a wave, and then it comes down, and then if I swam with the wave, then the wave will put me now in some other place than I was before without me having to swim all the way. The wave did it. Yeah. And if we're talking about anger, so when you reconnect with your anger, for example, then the first thing that you usually notice is that you're angry at things that before you were not angry about. Yeah, maybe you don't like that, that's okay. But you also realize that some things crossed your boundaries or were aiming to cross your boundaries that before you accepted and you just felt bad because it happened. And now you don't accept anymore. So you feel good because you keep your boundaries and you're safer. That's one layer of it. Another layer of it will show up in your various relationships, and specifically if this is a training for professionals, yeah. So it's not just about what do we gain in our personal life, it's also about what we gain in our professional lives. So if I am more in touch with anger, it means that my clients can also bring their anger. When I was not angry, my clients could not bring their anger because they would unconsciously know that I will leave them or believe that I will leave them. Maybe I wouldn't leave them, but I would create some, distance because I couldn't handle it. The more I got in touch with anger and violence and rage and other nice stuff, and I didn't become a horrible person, but I could stay present and guide more skillfully my clients through their work. Yeah. Also, when I got in touch with other kinds of shadows, which are less aggressive by nature, it also allowed me to be more distinct. So, for example, instead of getting easily enmeshed with my client's story, trying to save them or trying to put them in place because they're doing something wrong, or because or even sometimes feeling like I'm their victim because they are aggressive, let's say, yeah. I find myself having a much better sense of who am I, who are they, and
How
it
does
actually supports them.
how does this help in the family? I mean, I understand that it's helping with the clients. How would
Mm.
this aspect that you spoke about, and it's so beautifully you said, and it struck me that if I'm asking for softness from someone, maybe I'm
Mm.
not being soft with someone, and I'm not in touch with that soft part of me. I just became aware of that. But more than that, when you're saying I could allow people to bring in their anger. So how did this uh, change for you at the family level? I mean, what, because your family wasn't accepting of anger at all. How did
Mhm.
how did it help there?
I think it differs between families and the ability of different family members to accept changes. But in general, um, we are not really individuals. Okay, we're being taught that we're individuals. It's all up to us. But actually, we're a part of a system or many systems, multidimensional systems. So when we change and we are a part of a family system, the family system changes. Sometimes in small steps, sometimes in big ones. Maybe I will not feel it with my parents, but I will feel it with my siblings. Maybe my parents and siblings will stay the same, but my children will suddenly be more free.
Wow.
Yeah, that often happens. I remember a session I had a few years ago, and it was even an online training, and there was someone from Ireland. I'm not going to share any details, of course, but we walked with her story in her family, and eventually what came up was a Black Sunday. Black Sunday was an event in Ireland history where peace protesters were massacred some 50 years ago, and that received acknowledgement. And the constellation ended the way it ended, and 2 or 3 months later, she wrote to us in the group, I have to tell you, different factions in my family didn't speak for years. Since the last 2 months, they started to speak with each other for no good reason.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm
That
not saying it will always happen, but saying there is a potential for this level of feeling also inside of family.
So, Neer, how is this different from family constellation? Because a lot of people know about family constellation and then they
Yeah.
talk about shadow work. But
Mhm.
it's very difficult for me to explain to them what's the difference between shadow constellation that you've already
Mhm.
explained slightly, but how is it different from family constellation, or do we integrate it?
It's not different. You could say it's a niche that has some layers out of family constellations, maybe because it's an interdisciplinary niche. Yeah. Um, in a way, it it puts a focus on that layer of how the family system or other system work, what is missing there, what is not acknowledged there, and how it affects ourselves deeply inside. And it goes both ways. So sometimes I'm affected by my family story. Let's say my grandfather was a gambler and he lost all the family money, and I have to never take a risk because of that. So my risk-taking aspects I have to push to the shadow. Yeah. And when I work with that, um, well, my grandfather may be not alive anymore, but I may allow myself to feel more at ease with taking some calculated risks. Yeah. Um, and you can do it from working with any family constellation session. Yeah. But when you start working through the shadow, what usually happens is that the shadow takes you directly to the relevant intergenerational traumas that are specifically affecting the topic that you want to work with, shadow. Because shadow is the child of trauma. What affected the survival, the good or bad faith of previous generations, would then turn either into the family shadow or into the family persona. So how I should be the persona and how I shouldn't be the shadow. And
Wow.
that's one aspect of it.
I love the
Another
way you say it's the child. I love the way you say it's the child of, yeah. It's
yeah.
like you need to distinguish between that means what is really a shadow, what is really a trauma, what's really what are we showing and what are we really throwing back in the dustbin or back in the shadow. And that's fabulous part of our personalities that we never really look at. So, Neer, you said you've been teaching this for many, many years now. And how many would that be?
I'm working with people professionally for over 22 years.
Wow.
I think that I sensed other people energies already when I was in my mother's womb. Uh, and I probably have some previous incarnation of a high priest. But Shadow Constellations I teach for 8 or 9 years now.
And
Eh,
how's life different for you? Because, family constellation was there, all other modalities were there. But in last 8 years, what is
mhm.
one grinding thing that, one thing that really came up for you and said, oh my God, if this is my life purpose, this is what I do now, this is really calling out to me. What's that one thing that really uh, fascinates you about the work that you do? Because it can be contagious.
It has to be to do with both hope and safety.
Wow.
Hope, because very often what we cannot work through and what gets us in despair has to do with what is in our shadow. And what prevents us from living life more fully has to do with what we do not allow ourselves to be because of our shadow. And safety, because, and I'm going to shoot myself in the leg, but still, 90% of what I'm going to teach you is not for you to teach to your students or to your clients or to work with them. It's for you to implement with yourselves. After you do that, go ahead, yeah? But when you implement it with yourself, you become safer, you become deeper. You're able to hold space for things that you could not hold space for before. And this is gradual. It's not you do it once or twice or 5 times and you're fixed. It's a life journey. I've been doing it intensively for many years. And I'm, and every time, and every training, I again and again find new, deeper, older places that I haven't met yet, and that transform myself, my relationship, and how I work with people. Do I still mess up sometimes? Yes. Nothing gives you immunity, okay? We will die with some shadow intact without us touching it. But unless we're the Buddha and, we'll transform someplace else. But as long as we're human, we'll have some shadows. I want to be really clear on that. The more that we work with our shadow, we can hold space for more complex, more deep, more strange things. We can hold it in a safer way. And even when we mess up, we can more easily identify it, apologize, recover from it, make it to something that we can learn from and make a repair from, instead of just leave it as this sucks. Yeah. And again, I'm really being honest here. I still once in a very long while mess up in a way which cannot be repaired. Okay. I'm still a human being, but it's a question of statistics. And my statistics definitely got much better. And I think I can say the same for many of my students that I'm in touch with. Their statistics got better. And that makes a big difference for me. If it was up to me, this kind of work would be taught in any modality as a part of basic training, because it allows us to move from I'm just doing my work, helping someone, to I'm noticing myself as I'm doing the work. And I am not only dependent on getting supervision from a teacher or from a supervisor. I have the tools to give myself supervision to that work much faster and sometimes right on the point. And that really, it just brings sometimes very complex relationships to become, again, closer and simpler and less reactive and less triggered, because we can acknowledge the triggers, because we can own them. That makes a big difference.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. You need a lot of muscle to be able to look at yourself. And I really, really respect you for having that vision to, not just for yourself, but for others, so that they can have an opportunity to be in touch with their honesty and their authenticity. It felt to me when you were speaking that I cannot be authentic with myself. I cannot even start being authentic with myself if I don't know what is it that I've thrown in my shadow.
No one is authentic
Thank you.
because we all have shadows, right? And personas. We can be more authentic. We can be pretty authentic. We can have authentic moments. Yeah. But authenticity, like any other archetype, is an ideal. Yeah. And as long as we live with people and care about their opinions to some degree, and need other people, and not everyone is enlightened yet, then we'll probably not be completely authentic. But it's not about being completely. It's about being good enough. Being authentic enough for us to have meaningful, soulful relationships. Being authentic enough with ourselves to say, hell, I don't know this. Let's have a look at what I don't know right now about myself and see what can come out of it. And to be able to say, well, if this is happening between the two of us, I must have a part. Maybe you also have a part, and maybe your part is bigger. But I allowed myself to be captured into this dynamic. I have a part in it. Yeah. And if I've been judgmental to someone, that's okay, that's normal. But it just tells me, oh, must have been some shadow here. So I'll take responsibility over my shadow, and then let's see what happens. Because the thing is that other people sense it.
Yes.
They know when we are judgmental, even if we don't show it. They know when we distance ourselves. They know when we want something from them that they don't want to give, and they react consciously or unconsciously. They react. And we think it's them, but so often it's us. And then we cannot change, we can help them change themselves. But us, we can change. And this is why I'm talking about hope, yeah? Because we can change. There is a choice that we can make, and there are tools that can facilitate the change in ourselves. And the change is not just me changing, it's also my perspective about things changing. So I look at them from a wider perspective, from a more multidimensional perspective, from a more empowering perspective.
That's fascinating, really. I mean, I've been studying with you for the last, 2 courses that you have done, and I'm always fascinated more. What more can I be, learning here? It's not about learning, guys. Let me be very straightforward here. The more I learned from Neer, the less I felt I knew. I don't know how to put it. He's so simple.
It sounds bad when you say it that way.
It sounded like.
It sounds bad, like I make you feel like you know less.
No, he didn't make me feel less. It just, I understood that there was such an important part of understanding self that was missing for me all my life. And when I started looking at that part of me, I actually felt something returned back to me.
That's the magic of the work.
Yes. And
Uh,
that's why I said the more I learned from you, the less I felt I knew, because my world of exploration started. So far, I had met teachers who said to me, authenticity is very important. And for the last 1 year, ever since I've started from you in Jan, I've been sitting down saying there is no authenticity. I've been debating with that. And then you sit down here and say, but there is no authenticity. And I
no
said,
full authenticity.
oh, that's what I was looking for. When my mentors say authenticity, I'm looking at all of them and saying, are they authentic? Are they authentic? Are they authentic? Am I being authentic? And some part of me said, no, you're not. And when I'm looking at you and saying, hey, you know what? It's not like this. That's when I said, I feel I know so little. And these are the layers on in the layers that you're going to be looking at yourself. And that's what fascinates me about what he's going to be bringing to us. Neer, what really is this course all about? What are you going to be teaching us? Because again and again, they're going to be asking.
I'm going to say in a moment, but I want
Brief.
first to relate to what you said. That moment of, oh, I actually don't know anything or I don't know enough, it's a part of what I term shadow shock. It's the shock that we have when we realize that we're being in touch, or we feel that we are in touch with something that we were not in touch with it before.
Yes.
And there is a shock in that. Sometimes it's a pleasant shock. Oh, it's coming back. And sometimes, very often, when it's deeply in the shadow, it's an unpleasant shock that can show up in different ways. But again, if you remember, it's temporary.
Yes.
And then we are more whole. Okay, so every once in a while, I feel myself that I have no idea what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And then I remind myself, oh, that's a sign you're about to get deeper. That's a sign that you're about to meet something that you didn't meet for a long time or at all. Okay. Okay, to your question. We will have 10 lessons throughout this training. Each day we'll have 2 lessons and a break in between. And each lesson will be composed of some time for questions and sharings, some time for teaching, because I do teach some material despite what Anu said, because the mind also needs to learn and not just the body. We want the body and the mind both to learn. Some experiential practice, then a break, then either a group process or a demo followed by practicing in pairs. This is the structure of every lesson. Some part will take more than another part, but it's okay. The topics are, the first day we will learn the foundations of shadow work and shadow world archetypes, and the foundations of family constellations, the orders of love, acknowledging what is, systemic thinking, etc. On the second day, we'll dive into the relationships in the clinic, shadows in the clinic, and we look deeply in what triggers us in relation to our clients and learn different ways to disentangle through shadow work, through shadow constellations, so that we are able to be more there present for them and less playing roles in their systems and less affecting them in adverse ways. And that also happens. On the third day, we look into cultural shadows, because different cultures have different shadows. And that's very important if you're working not only with people from your own village, but even if you are only working with people from your own village, you would find out that there are, let's say we're in India, yeah, so we have several castes, right? Each one has its own culture. Rich people, poor people, different culture. If you live high up on the building or low, it's a different culture. If you're a man or a woman, it's a different culture. We'll look at that and how it affects us and how the culture of our parents affects us, even though it's their culture, but we are shaped by this too and by the traumas of the culture. So we don't only carry in the shadow our personal and our family traumas, we're also carrying our cultural traumas in our shadow. And also on the third day, we work with golden shadows. Golden shadows are the good shadows, things that we feel that are good, but we don't have them. I'm not that creative. I'm not really that intelligent. I'm not attractive. I can't handle large groups. I can't be successful. And why is that? Because usually the good thing is attached to some classical shadow. And we will learn how to identify it and how to disentangle from it so that we can be more of what we would like to be. And it will also help us to take our teachers down from where we put them and place them in a more eye-to-eye level so that we can learn from them without giving them power they don't need to teach us with. And on the 8th day, we'll dive into shadows of helplessness, which is a major topic for any helping profession. And when we want to help people, and helplessness is to some degree in our shadow or in our persona, we are very likely to get captured by savior or perpetrator or victim or silent accomplice. There is a lot of depth in that, but just to give the titles, yeah. And so being able to be in touch with our helplessness allows us to stay present and not fall into different roles that usually end up in clients being hurt and we being frustrated, not understanding what happened. And the second half of the fourth day will work with shadows of aggression and vulnerability. And both aggression and vulnerability are big things in therapy and healing work, right? We are nice people, we're soft people, we're not aggressive people. And how do we deal with aggression? And sometimes we are over-identified with being too vulnerable. And of course, some of us are over-identified with being aggressive. How do we handle that? On the last day, we dive the deepest. On the morning, we will work with shadows of sexuality and some aspects of sexual abuse in this kind of work. Learn how to identify signs that no one speaks about, that your client has been sexually abused, and understanding better some of our reactions and unconscious positioning to our clients who were abused. And on the 10th and last lesson, we'll work with shadows of death and farewell in a personal as well as in a collective manner. These are the topics of the first Shadow Constellations model that we will do. But if you're not scared yet, too scared to come, then you're welcome.
So I'm going to open the forum to people for questions. There is already one question that's there online. It's by Manisha. Manisha is asking, what's the difference between repressed emotions and shadows?
Okay. When something is repressed, it means that we are not in touch with it, we are not aware of it, but if someone else feels that emotion, it doesn't trigger us. Okay, so for example, I'm not angry. When I see an angry person, I'm like, yeah, okay, they're angry, no big deal. I'm not angry, they're angry, okay. When for something to be in the shadow, it has to be both repressed and denied. I'm not angry. How dare she be so angry? How does she allow herself to be angry when I'm not allowing myself to be? Again, unconscious thought. When something is repressed, you don't know about it, don't know that it's there, it's not available to you, but it's not an issue. You don't judge it. Yeah. This would be the classical differentiation, I think, between repressed emotions and emotions in the shadow, let's say.
Thank you for that.
Yes, please.
Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. You can raise your hand so that I can give you permission to. Anybody wants to ask a question? I can see someone's hand being. Okay. Could you just unmute yourself and ask the question that you wanted to? You have no questions?
I think Smith raised their hand.
Maybe if you raise your hand and ask your question, that would be nice. Okay, Manisha, unmute yourself, sweetheart.
Yeah, I was just asking that anger trauma or emotional trauma and the tragic trauma is two different things. Shadow is two different kind of.
Come again, repeat the question, please.
Yeah, is it emotional shadow or a trauma like some incident or death? It's a two different kind of a shadow.
Okay, very good question. Classical shadow is what I call or define developmental shadow. It's what during our growing up, usually in very early years, we realize that it's not safe to have, so we push it. Yeah. It is the result of traumas of the previous generations in the family and in the culture. Sometimes we experience some difficult events or traumas in our lives, and the result is what I would call traumatic shadow. These are the parts that we lose touch with, not because they were not allowed, but because we couldn't handle being in touch with them. Things we forget, and abilities that disappeared for us, or options that disappeared for us. On a soul level, you can see even before being born, even during pregnancy, and sometimes on the way from up there to down here, you can see that there is some soul loss as a result of us realizing what womb we're getting into, or because our parents experienced certain things and they influence us already before we psychologically create a shadow. In a way, one good way to differentiate trauma and shadow is that when in the presence of trauma, we feel unsafe. In the presence of shadow, we feel unpresent and judgmental, but not necessarily unsafe. Of course, it does happen a lot, then trauma and shadow comes together. Yeah. Your great uncle died in the partition and nobody talks about how he died. Yeah. So there is the trauma of the death and there is the hiding of something about how he died that may have to do with the shadow. Maybe not, but maybe yes. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Manisha, for that amazing question. Is there anyone else who would like to
Yes,
ask a question?
Vrinda, raise your hand, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Nir, and thank you, Anu. It's been a very enlightening session. Am I audible?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So, my question is more from an observation that I had over the past week about myself. Is there was a little thing that I was struggling with at work, but I wouldn't go out and ask for help until a colleague, stepped in and said, "Why don't you reach out for help?" I didn't even know that I was struggling with something that I should have reached out for help for. So how does one know that, it is essentially, I do not know what I do not know, right? Is that a shadow?
Right.
How to deal with that kind of thing. So
Okay. We will learn that too in the training. For now, I will say that it is true. When something is fully 100% in the shadow, we can't touch it. Yeah? You can think about some things in your life that you didn't understand and people tried to show you and you couldn't see it until some earthquake happened in your life and you really changed dramatically. And then suddenly you could see that. Yeah. That earthquake, usually trauma or a very big change, allowed for something that was completely in the dark to start showing up. What we can actually work with is always, at least to some degree, a partial shadow, meaning we can see at least the tail of the dog. Okay. And then we can look at what we can see and from there. So, for example, in your case, you didn't ask the specific question, but let's say you would have asked me, how would I know why I didn't ask for help? Yeah. So I would say, I don't know, but let's just assume that there is a reason. Yeah. So thanks to family constellations, I can ask you to choose some object, let's say this crystal, and place it as a representation of what made you not ask for help. Yeah. And maybe you'll get an answer, and maybe you'll get a direction to explore. Yeah. And of course, we can also ask to place this representation for something that is in your shadow that affected your ability to ask for help. Each one of them may give you somewhat different answers, or maybe very different answers. Yeah. Let's say on the first one, you may feel like, oh, also my mother never asked for help. I'm just not used to asking for help. Yeah. And then you go to the shadow aspect of why you didn't ask for help. And you find out that, let's say, if I ask for help, I'm taking too much space from people. And I don't want to take space. Yeah. And that's a common shadow with women and with people who are abused because it's dangerous to take place. Yeah. And some other subgroups. So the first question would give you the answer that you already know. Oh, yeah, in my family, we don't do that. And the second question, going through the shadow, would lead you deeper very often. The shadow is a shortcut to the depth because it is in the deep. And that's like a very entry level answer what I told you. If you would really work with it, I would naturally go deeper, but it's not the space here to do that, especially it's a recorded session. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Thank you. Just give me a thought and a direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Vrinda. That was splendid. And thank you, Neil, for answering that. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question, please? We still have about 7 minutes to go. And it would be really nice if you have a question, either put it down in the chat or unmute yourself and just ask the question.
Or if you happen to learn with me and you're here and you want to share something, you're also welcome to do that.
Yeah.
I think, Neil, you should also mention the number of workshops you have done by now in training so many of us.
I stopped counting after 50, so such trainings, I mean. So I don't know anymore, but probably less than 100 such workshops of 5 full days, but more than 50. And I'm also working with 20 to 25 people every week for a lot of years now, probably at least for the last 18 years or 17 years. So as I said, it's not so much about how much I'm teaching it, it's about how much I'm applying it in my life.
Yeah.
And that I do a lot. Thank you for the question, Sharmista.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Mishta, for that. So, Mishta, why don't it would be really nice if you can share your experience because you've also been very closely connected with NIR. What has your experience been as a student? That would really, really help.
Only if you feel like sharing right now,
Thank
to
you.
be clear. Perfectly fine if you don't feel like it. Don't feel any pressure.
Right. I mean, certain things come really easy, and what I would really bring here, in addition to everything that's already been said, is shadow is the taking a step towards shadow work is really the first step towards that minor commitment that you are just about beginning to make for your own self. So, in a very simple way, when you're ready to be able to give yourself that little importance and you're willing to take that little step to be kinder to yourself, is really when you're beginning to look at and stepping into doing or engaging or learning and being in the space where shadow work is happening. Because that little commitment that you do to yourself through this training really helps you bring, like Neer said and Anu said, pieces that you have not really realized has been forgotten or separated from you. Those little pieces begin to come back to you. And I know that's such a huge contribution to humanity in today's times. So I think for the moment, this is what all I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Dinabad, dear Sharmista, thank you. And you remind me to say that the way I teach Shadow Constellations, I put a focus on compassion. It's not let's cut through our shadows and let's cut through our defenses. It's let's be very gentle and trauma aware, because none of us gave up on self parts by choice. We all did it when we felt like there was no choice. So it's always sensitive. And we want to invite ourselves and our clients eventually to do this kind of work and not to push anyone into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll
That's
just
very
add the
important.
Yeah, I'll just add that second part is that it's very safe holding. I mean, I have known Neil for many years now online, and I was very lucky that I was able to be with him on site. So, very blessed. But in all of this experience and being with him and connecting on many occasions, the biggest aspect that I feel good about is that it's a very safe space, and holding safe space right from start to finish, holding safe space in many different parameters and many different ways that people understand safety differently is something that NIR focuses and concentrates on a lot, right from the beginning and the first day and the first moments that you begin with this workshop. So, safety is really big that he brings to the space and the training. Yeah. Thank you again.
Thank you, dear Sharmista.
Absolutely. And I say this, I will add to it and say yes, absolutely, because that's how I felt. Extremely, extremely safe. Um, is there any message that you would like to give, Neer, for everybody? Because we still have 3 minutes to go, and before we say goodbyes, um, and we're living in the world today which is full of shadows, which is living not just with our shadows, but shadows of our loved ones, shadows of community. We just are looking at the part. I mean, I'm not even looking at ghosts here. I'm looking at shadows on shadows. Is there a message you would like to give to the bigger public? Because this is gone on the Facebook, and maybe there's a message that gets left behind for everyone. It's not about you joining the workshop or not joining the workshop. It is about
Yeah.
something that maybe the world needs right now. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to
Yeah,
say something before Neat so that Nee can expand. Is that shadow is associated with something which is negative. So I just want to place that with you as you're answering this question.
thank you. In one sentence, shadow work is peace work. When we make peace with what we thought was wrong in ourselves, but is not, then we can make peace with people. And if enough people make peace with people, we start to make peace between nations. So it's from the very micro, me and myself, all the way to my close relationships, my family of origin, the family that I've created, my friends, my colleagues, my teachers, my students, my clients, my neighbors, my community, my tribe, my nation, my world. The most horrible things happen when we project our shadows on someone else and say, oh, they're evil, they're demonic. Instead of saying, wait a minute, before I go and start a war with you, is it possible that I have something to meet inside of myself? And if I have no choice, I'll fight, that's okay. Fighting is also a part of the human spectrum, war is. But maybe we can have less of that. I'd like to have less of that. It's too much. I'm not saying it should never be, because who am I to tell? But there's definitely too much of it.
Thank you, Neer. I have a request with everybody. Can you all put on your camera at least now, so that when we say goodbye, Neer sees your faces and I see your faces. All of us. Can we just put on the cameras just for 3 minutes, 2 minutes? Thank you. 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 Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to meeting you in a training. If you feel drawn to it, feel free to let your friends know if you feel it will benefit them. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask in private, you're welcome to contact me. My website is niresterman.com, in one word, and there's a contact form there, and you're welcome to
Can you
contact me.
just put it on the chat so people can copy?
Sure. Where is the chat? Yes. And my email is very similar, niresterman@gmail.com. So you have both, and you can choose your way of making contact.
Yes.
And if you have any administrative questions, Anu here is the address, because she's organizing the training.
I will put down my phone number. If anyone has anything that you want to ask me, that's my phone number, and you can reach me. If I am unavailable, please leave a message behind. I will contact you. You are precious, you're very important, and I will connect back with you. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, Neer, for being
Thank
here.
you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neer. Thank you, Anu.
Thank you very much, Mehta and everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.